Imagine a world free of diseases, where there's no longer a need for hospital, medicines, injections, or surgeries. Decades ago, this may still sound like a pie-in-the-sky fantasy, but not far from now, this may well be the reality. Thanks to the advancing genetic engineering technologies, people are now able to grasp better control over their child's health, ensuring that their children are free from the torment of the many incurable genetic diseases. From selective breeding to gene therapy, all parents ever wanted is to make sure that their child will have at least a healthy, if not the perfect life. Gene therapy may well be the way out. The idea of passing on the more ideal genes has existed for a long time. The earliest form of genetic engineering is selective breeding. Back when Hitler is still the ruler of Germany, his way to ensure that only the best gets passed on was by killing or sterilizing the inferior ones. For obvious reasons, such actions would come across mountainous obstacles in today's society. But now, parents of the 20th century are presented with a much less extreme yet more accurate means to ensure the well-being of their offspring. Tempted though they might be, most parents are still hesitant about it, and let's see why. Now let's first take a look at the story of the Sabins brother. John and Charles are both carriers of the genes that could lead to Huntington disease. John, being the older of the two, has become the first to suffer from the disease. Once recognized as the brightest lawyer in the UK, he is now not even capable of walking or talking. Meanwhile, there's little that Charles can do to help his brother, or himself really, as the same fate very likely awaits him in just years to come. The conditions of the Sabins brothers could have been avoided nowadays by just a simple switch in genes. With the discovery of CRISPR technology, scientists and doctors are now able to concisely target unwanted genes with unimaginable accuracy and a very low cost. Working alongside CRISPR, there are pre-implantation genetic diagnosis and prenatal genetic screening. With these technologies, more inheritable disease can be prevented and even removed from the family tree once and for all. Sounds pretty awesome, right? Once the law has been passed on that, even the government can benefit from it, for their medical expenses can be dramatically reduced with people having a longer life expectancy and leading a much healthier life. All of these sounds just perfect, are simple gestures that can benefit a lot of people. But now, I'm sure that as much as you're excited about the idea of that, you're also at the same time a little creeped out by it. And here comes the catch. How exactly do you define diseases? To what lengths shall one be allowed to alter selected genes? One may say that diseases are obviously something that will harm your health and will affect our quality of life. True, that might be. And the first thing that comes to our mind would probably be things like cancers and diabetes. Then what about obesity and alcoholism? And when you really think about it, in a way being too short or not clever enough or too ugly can too affect our quality of life. So, where do we draw the line? To know more about diseases, who better to ask than the disabled themselves? Now, let's have another look in a story about Ruthie Wessis, a young basketball player who is also an albino, which means that she's virtually completely blind. As one can imagine, poor eyesight is not exactly the most ideal quality that a basketball player should have. Despite being the worst player at first, she didn't give up and go the extra miles, practicing every minute of every day and eventually become a fairly competent player. When she looked back, she's thankful for her conditions that makes her strong and taught her perseverance. So the argument here is that perfect health is not necessarily the best thing for our children, when most people without disability only focuses on the drawbacks that disability would bring them. Those who are disabled think quite differently. Taking the deaf community as an example, they tend not to think of their deafness as a disability, but rather a gift, and they value their culture so much that one couple even go on to deliberately select a deaf gene for their children so that they can be the same. In fact, many disabled persons, like
created using Powtoon.